darkness. Nothing but darkness. In a room where not a single ray of light enters, a man sits alone. His hands are trembling. His breathing is shallow. Outside the door, soldiers stand guard, waiting for a single order. If this man isn't proven mad by morning, tonight he will be executed. But that day, something happened that would change the world of science forever. This is the story of Ibn al-Haytham, the man history remembers as the father of modern optics. But this isn't just the story of a scientist. This is a story of survival, of fear, and of risking everything for the sake of truth. Let's start from the very beginning. 11th century Iraq. The city of Basra, a center of knowledge, where the scent of books filled every street and scholars gathered in every corner. Here, a child was born, al-Hasan ibn al-Haytham. Even as a boy, questions spun endlessly in his mind. Why does the sun shine the way it does? How does the eye actually see? Where does light come from, and where does it disappear to? At that time, most people believed the eye itself emitted rays, and that's how objects became visible to us. But something inside young Ibn al-Haytham refused to accept this explanation. He needed proof. He needed answers no one else was asking for. But this was only the beginning. As he grew older, his brilliance became impossible to ignore. In mathematics, in philosophy, in astronomy, his name began appearing in scholarly circles across the region. But the real turning point of his life came when he made one bold claim, a claim that reached the ears of the most powerful man in Egypt. He said, "I can control the Nile River." Every year, the Nile brought both life and destruction to Egypt. Too much water, and villages drowned. Too little, and people starved. When the Fatimid Caliph, al-Hakim bi-Amr Allah, heard that a brilliant scholar claimed he could tame this ancient river, he was overjoyed. He summoned Ibn al-Haytham to Egypt immediately, full of hope. But this is where the real trouble begins. When Ibn al-Haytham finally stood at the banks of the Nile near Aswan and saw its true scale with his own eyes, his heart sank instantly. This river was too vast, too powerful, too wild. With the engineering knowledge of that era, controlling it was simply impossible. He had made a promise he could not keep. Now, one terrifying question remained. How do you tell that to a caliph? Remember, al-Hakim was no ordinary ruler. He was known throughout the land for his unpredictable and dangerous temper. Those who disappointed him did not always live to regret it. Ibn al-Haytham's heart pounded violently in his chest. He whispered to himself, "If I speak the truth now, I may lose my head by tonight." Then something happened that no one could have expected. Ibn al-Haytham made a decision that very few men in history have ever dared to make. To save his own life, he began pretending to be insane. Just imagine it. A man with one of the sharpest minds of his generation, now wandering the streets aimlessly, mumbling nonsense, acting broken and helpless, all just to stay alive one more day. People pointed at him. Children laughed and threw insults. But behind those tired eyes, a brilliant mind kept working, kept thinking, kept burning with unanswered questions. Eventually, al-Hakim's men decided this madman was no longer worth killing. Instead of execution, they placed him under house arrest, locked away, forgotten by the world outside. To everyone watching, it seemed like a brilliant mind had been completely destroyed. But the truth was something far greater. Inside that small, dim, suffocating cell, where only a single thin crack in the wall let in any light at all, Ibn al-Haytham noticed something extraordinary, something no one before him had ever truly understood. On the opposite wall, through that tiny crack, an upside-down image of the outside world slowly appeared. A man walking by, upside down, a tree swaying, upside down. It looked almost like magic. His heart raced with excitement, but he refused to believe it was magic. He knew instantly that this was something far more powerful, a hidden law of nature, a secret of light itself. This was the first documented camera obscura experiment in history, the very foundation on which photography and modern cameras are built today. But this was only the beginning. For years inside that prison, Ibn al-Haytham dedicated every single night to this discovery. There was no paper, so he wrote directly onto the stone walls. There was barely any light, so he learned to use darkness itself as his greatest tool. Night after night, he proved that light travels only in straight lines. He proved once and for all that we see objects because light bounces off them and enters our eyes, not because our eyes shoot out light, as everyone had wrongly believed for centuries. An ancient, flawed idea, shattered by a lonely prisoner with nothing but a wall and his mind. Just think about that. Outside those walls, the world believed him mad. Inside, he was quietly rewriting the laws of science. The days turned into months, the months into years. Hunger, isolation, fear. They never truly left his side. Many nights he must have wondered if he would ever walk free again. But every time doubt crept in, he would look again at the notes scratched into his walls, and something inside him reignited. He would whisper to himself, "If Allah gave me this knowledge, it was never meant to die in this cell." Then, finally, came the moment the world was waiting for. In the year 1021, al-Hakim disappeared under mysterious circumstances. He rode out alone one night and was never seen again. When the news reached Ibn al-Haytham's cell, his hands began to shake. Could it be true? Was he finally, truly free? Slowly, the heavy door creaked open. Sunlight poured directly onto his face, the very same light whose secrets he had spent years uncovering in total darkness. He stepped outside, weak, thin, exhausted, but alive. And in his possession was something far more valuable than any treasure a king could offer. Pure, hard-earned knowledge. Now begins the real story of his legacy. Ibn al-Haytham poured his life's entire work into one monumental book, Kitab al-Manazir, known today as the Book of Optics. In it, he explained light, vision, and the human eye with such astonishing depth that centuries later, European scientists like Roger Bacon and Johannes Kepler built their own discoveries directly upon his foundation. He also introduced a rigorous method of proving truth: careful observation, followed by hypothesis, followed by testing through experiment. This method is still used by every scientist on Earth today, which is exactly why many now call him the true father of the modern scientific method. Remember this. All of it came from a man the world once dismissed as completely insane. But here lies the real lesson of his story. Ibn al-Haytham showed us that even in our darkest, most hopeless moments, if our intention remains pure and our search for truth stays sincere, even darkness itself can become a doorway to light. His imprisonment, his suffering, his fear, all of it was a trial. And instead of breaking him, he transformed that trial into a gift for all of humanity. Today, whenever you snap a photo on your phone or look through any camera lens, remember this. Its very foundation was laid by a Muslim scientist alone in a dark prison cell centuries ago. This was the story of Ibn al-Haytham, one of Islam's greatest scientific minds, a name the world can never afford to forget. But the real story was only just beginning, because after him, the Islamic Golden Age produced even more extraordinary minds: Al-Khwarizmi, Ibn Sina, Al-Razi, each with stories just as powerful, just as astonishing. In our next episode, we bring you the story of another towering figure from this golden era. So, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay with us, because this journey of knowledge has only just begun.